All right, so ready to really polish up that professional image? We're going deep on business etiquette today with these two articles. What is business etiquette? With types and how to improve.
Yeah.
And business etiquette rules.
Sounds good.
We'll be looking at those little things that can really help you succeed or, make a bad impression, like subtle nonverbal cues, or how to really become a master networker. So let's get right into it.
One of the most interesting things, I think, is that people see business etiquette as just like a list of rules. But when you really think about it, it's more about the core of how you build good relationships at work and how you make your workplace better.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's not just, which fork to use at that business lunch.
Exactly. If you think about things like clear communication, respecting other people's time, even just having a clean workspace, all of those things contribute to a workplace that runs more smoothly, more productively, and everyone ends up being more successful.
So it's like the oil that keeps the whole organization's engine running.
That's a great way to think about it. And it's not just for huge companies. Either these ideas work if you freelance, if you're on a small team, or if you're in charge of a big company.
Okay, let's get into some specifics.
Oh.
One of the articles starts with different types of etiquette, and the first one is networking. I used to think that networking was just, get as many business cards as you can and hope that someone will magically offer me a job.
Well, these articles talk about a way better strategy, and I'd even say a more generous approach. It's all about making relationships that are good for both people, not just looking to get something for yourself.
So how do you actually do that?
One of the articles mentioned a really cool tip. They said, try to offer something valuable to the people you meet, like maybe sharing some helpful resources or connecting them with someone who could help their business.
That makes a lot of sense. So instead of always asking for favors, you become someone who has something to offer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It changes things up, and it makes you stand out when everyone else is just thinking about themselves.
And since we're talking about standing out, let's move on to interview etiquette. I've heard that first impressions are super important, but are we talking about like doing a power pose and having a really firm handshake?
Those are definitely important, don't get me wrong, but the articles really stress that being prepared shows respect. Choosing the right clothes, doing your research on the company, being on time, all of those things show that you care about the interviewer's time and you take this opportunity seriously.
So it's like you're saying, hey, I'm ready, I'm professional, and I'm not going to waste your time, all without even saying a word.
That's exactly it. And it doesn't end there. What you do after the interview can really make you stand out from other candidates.
The article said to send a thank you note written by hand. Is that still a thing these days with everyone using email?
Definitely. When everyone's sending instant emails and texts, a note that you wrote by hand shows that you put in some extra effort and people remember that. And even if you do send a follow-up email, make it personal, skip the generic replies, and talk about something specific that you talked about in the interview.
Got it. So you've aced the interview, landed the job, now you're in the workplace. This is where it gets really interesting, right?
Absolutely. Now you're building relationships with coworkers, meeting new clients, and making a name for yourself at the company.
One of the articles said that introductions should be more than just saying, this is so-and-so. What's the secret to a really memorable introduction?
It's all about giving some context. Instead of just names, tell them what the person does, what project they're working on, maybe even a hobby you both share.
So if you were introducing me, you'd say, this is the host of The Deep Dive, and she's really interested in how you use data analytics in your marketing strategies.
That's perfect. You've given them something to connect over, and it's a good way to start a real conversation instead of just, nice to meet you.
I like that. Now let's get down to some practical stuff. Time management is a big one for me. I'm all about getting things done quickly, but sometimes I have trouble with deadlines. Is that an etiquette thing?
It totally is. These articles make it clear that respecting other people's time is super important for good business etiquette. When you miss deadlines all the time, it messes up everyone's work and stresses people out.
I never thought of it that way. So it's not just about me being organized, it's about respecting how everyone works together on a project.
Exactly. And you know what else can send the wrong message? Having a messy workspace.
Really? I mean, I know a clean desk is nice, but is that really an etiquette issue?
More than you think. The article said that a messy workspace can make you look disorganized and even unprofessional. It makes it seem like you don't have things under control, and that can make people doubt whether you can actually handle your work.
Wow, I never looked at it like that. It's like those little nonverbal things we were talking about before they can say a lot, even if we don't realize it.
You got it. And that leads us to talking about how to improve your overall business etiquette. One of the articles breaks down what being professional really means.
Okay, I'm ready to take notes.
Yeah.
What's the magic formula?
It's not really a formula, it's more of a way of thinking. The article said that it's super important to use the right tone when you're talking to people, to show respect, even if you don't agree with them, and to be able to communicate clearly and get to the point.
Those seem like pretty basic communication skills. Are they really that important in the workplace?
Absolutely. Those skills are how you build trust and make good connections with people.
Okay, so it's like building a house. You need a strong foundation before you can add all the fancy stuff.
Exactly. And once you've got that foundation, you can start adding those soft skills the article talks about.
I hear a lot about soft skills, but I'm still not totally clear on what they are. Can you explain it for me?
Think of them as the skills that help you handle the human side of business. Things like really listening to people communicating clearly, and even emotional intelligence.
Wait, emotional intelligence, what's that have to do with business etiquette?
It's more connected than you think. The article explains that emotional intelligence is about being able to read people's body language, to understand and control your own feelings, and to react to other people's emotions in a way that makes relationships better.
So it's like knowing how everyone's feeling in a room and changing how you communicate based on that.
You got it. For example, if you're in a meeting and you can tell that one of your coworkers is stressed or feeling overwhelmed, you might want to change how you're talking to them to be more supportive and understanding.
That makes so much sense. So emotional intelligence is about noticing those little signals that we're always sending to each other, even if we don't realize it.
Exactly. And it's something you can learn and get better at over time by practicing and paying attention to yourself.
Okay, so we've covered communication skills, emotional intelligence. What other soft skills are really important for good business etiquette?
Well, the article also talks about how important time management is.
We talked about that earlier. We were talking about deadlines, but are there other ways that time management connects to etiquette?
Of course. Think about scheduling meetings. Do you send out clear agendas beforehand? Do you start and end meetings on time? Are you respecting your coworkers' time by not having unnecessary meetings?
Those are all great points. I've definitely been guilty of scheduling meetings one after another without thinking about travel time or giving people a break.
It's easy to do that, especially when things are busy. But the article says that these little details really matter because they show how professional you are and how much you respect other people's time.
All right, so we've got communication, emotional intelligence, and time management. What other pieces of the business etiquette puzzle are missing?
One of the articles focuses on how important it is to really engage with your colleagues.
I always hear network, network, network.
Yeah.
But is there more to it than just trading business cards and making small talk?
For sure. The article says to try to go beyond those surface-level interactions and get to know your coworkers on a more personal level.
I can see how that would make a more positive and supportive workplace. How do you go from, hey, how was your weekend, to building a real connection with someone?
It's about finding things you have in common, showing that you're really interested in what they have to say, and being willing to share a little bit about yourself, too.
So it's about making those personal connections that make work more fun and productive for everyone.
Right. And you know what else can be super helpful?
Tell me, I'm all ears.
Don't be afraid to ask for feedback.
Feedback? You mean like performance reviews?
Those are definitely one kind of feedback, but the article says to go beyond that and ask for feedback specifically about your etiquette from your coworkers, mentors, even clients.
That's a great idea. Sometimes we don't see our own blind spots, and hearing from other people can help us figure out what we need to work on.
Exactly. When you actively ask for feedback, you're showing that you want to keep improving yourself, which is a great quality in any job.
This has been such an interesting discussion. I'm already starting to think differently about business etiquette. But there's still more to talk about, right?
Yep. We've laid the foundation, but now it's time to get into those unbreakable rules that one of the articles talks about.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. I'm ready for some hard-hitting advice.
Yeah.
Let's dig into those unbreakable rules.
Okay, so let's dive in. So are you ready for those unbreakable rules?
Oh, yeah. Hit me with them.
Okay, well, it might seem really simple, but that article said it's super important to remember people's names and say them right.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that makes people feel like you respect them.
It's such an easy thing to do, but it really sets the tone for a good interaction, and you'd be surprised how many people mess it up.
I know, I've been there. Sometimes you meet so many people at once, it's hard to keep track. Any tips on how to remember names better?
The article said to try repeating the person's name back to them when you first meet them. It helps you remember it, and it shows them that you're actually paying attention.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm
Uh-huh.
definitely going to try that.
And don't be afraid to just ask them again if you didn't hear it right or you're not sure how to say it. It's way better to ask than to keep saying it wrong.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It shows that you care enough to get it right. Okay, what's the next unbreakable rule?
The article talked about saying hi to everyone you meet, even if it's just a quick hello or a nod.
I can see how that would make the workplace feel more friendly and welcoming, but doesn't that take up a lot of time, especially in a busy office?
It doesn't have to take long.
Yeah.
Just a smile and a good morning when you pass someone in the hallway can make a difference in how they see you.
Okay, I could do that. It's like spreading a little bit of good vibes around the office.
Exactly. And speaking of greetings, let's not forget about the handshake.
Ugh, I've heard so many different things about handshakes. Are they still necessary for business etiquette?
The article said that a firm handshake with good eye contact makes you look confident and professional.
Yeah, I could see how that would make a good first impression. But what about those awkward moments when you're not sure if someone's a hugger or a handshaker?
That's where you have to just read the situation. If you're not sure, offer your hand for a handshake, but be ready to change it up if they seem like they want a hug.
So it's all about being flexible and professional at the same time.
Right. And since we're talking about communication, let's talk about active listening.
We touched on that before, but why is it such an important rule?
Because it's a fundamental way to show respect and make strong connections. The article said that active listening isn't just about hearing the words someone's saying. It's about being totally focused on them engaging in the conversation and showing them that you actually care about what they're talking about.
Oh, man. I've definitely been guilty of spacing out in meetings or thinking about my to-do list while someone's talking to me. How can I be a better active listener?
The article suggested using little things like nodding, making eye contact, and leaning in a bit to show them you're listening.
I can see how those little things would make the speaker feel heard and appreciated.
Exactly. And when it's your turn to talk, sum up what you heard to make sure you got it right, and ask questions to show that you're paying attention to the details.
Those are really helpful tips. I'm starting to get how all these seemingly small things can really change how we interact at work.
Definitely. And speaking of making an impact, let's talk about handwritten thank you notes.
We mentioned those before, but why are they such a big deal?
In a world full of emails and texts, a handwritten note really stands out as something genuine and thoughtful. It shows that you took the time to write a personal message and say thank you in a way they can hold on to.
I can see how that would make someone feel really special.
You got it. And it doesn't have to be a long letter. Just a few sentences to say thank you and maybe mention something specific you learned or enjoyed from your conversation can make a big impression.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get some nice stationery after this.
Now, while we're on the subject of communication, let's move on to email etiquette.
Oh yeah, this is a big one for me. It feels like email is just full of potential etiquette disasters waiting to happen.
The article really emphasized proofreading your emails before you send them. Typos and grammar mistakes can make you look careless and unprofessional.
Oh, I've definitely sent emails I wish I could take back because I didn't take the time to proofread them.
It's so easy to make those mistakes when you're in a hurry, but spending a couple extra minutes to double-check everything can save you a lot of embarrassment later on.
And what about the tone of our emails? It feels like it's so easy to come across the wrong way when you're not talking to someone face-to-face.
That's a great point. The article said to pay attention to your tone and read your emails over before sending them to make sure they sound the way you want them to.
So if I'm feeling frustrated or mad, it's probably a good idea to step away from the computer for a bit and come back to the email later when I've calmed down.
Exactly. And remember, being professional applies to all types of communication, whether it's a face-to-face meeting, a phone call, a text message, or an online chat.
So it's all about keeping that same level of respect and consideration no matter how you're communicating.
Absolutely. And of course, we can't forget about being on time.
Another big one. I'm all about punctuality, but sometimes things happen that make it impossible to be on time.
The article said that, yeah, sometimes things come up, but it's important to communicate if you're going to be late.
So if I'm stuck in traffic on my way to a meeting, I should send a quick text or email to let them know.
Exactly. It shows that you respect their time, and it keeps them from wondering where you are.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've been on the other side of that where someone's late and I have no idea what's going on.
And while we're talking about first impressions, let's not forget about how you dress.
I feel like dress codes have gotten so much more relaxed these days. Is it still important to think about what you wear?
Even if your workplace is pretty casual, the article said it's still important to dress appropriately for the situation.
So jeans and a t-shirt might be fine for a casual Friday, but if you're meeting with a client, you might want to dress up a bit more.
You got it. And pay attention to the little things. Make sure your clothes are clean, ironed, and wrinkle-free.
And good hygiene's still a must, right?
Absolutely. The article made it clear that a clean and well-groomed appearance is essential.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here, from greetings and handshakes to email etiquette and dress code. But I'm feeling like there's more to come, right?
You're right. We've only just scratched the surface of these unbreakable rules. There's still more to unpack, so let's keep going.
All right, we're back for more of those unbreakable etiquette rules. Let's dive in.
Okay, great. So we've covered a lot of the basics, but now I think it's time to look at some situations you might find yourself in at work.
Okay, so let's say I'm taking a client out for a business lunch. Any etiquette tips for that?
The article said it's important to choose a restaurant that makes sense for the occasion and to make reservations ahead of time so you don't have to wait.
Got it. And if I'm the one who invited them, I should be ready to pay right.
Definitely. That's one of those classic etiquette rules that never goes out of style.
Okay, what about table manners? Do those still matter in a business setting?
Absolutely. Things like chewing with your mouth closed, using your napkin, and not reaching across the table are just as important at work as they are anywhere else.
So no elbows on the table, even if we're about to close a big deal.
Exactly. All right, let's change gears a bit and talk about those shared spaces in the office, like the kitchen, the printer, the conference room. The article said it's super important to be mindful of other people when you're using those spaces.
Yeah, I get that. We've all been there when the printer's jammed or there's no coffee left.
It's easy to just focus on what you need to do and forget about everyone else. But the article suggests simple things like cleaning up after yourself, refilling the printer paper, and keeping the noise down.
So it's all about making the workplace more pleasant and respectful for everyone.
Right. Now let's talk about something that can be a bit tricky: personal sharing at work.
I know it's good to be yourself and build relationships with your colleagues, but where do you draw the line between being friendly and oversharing?
It's all about finding that balance between being open and keeping things professional.
So talking about weekend plans or telling a funny story is fine, but maybe avoid talking about personal problems or sensitive subjects.
Exactly. And think about who you're talking to. Something
Yeah.
that's okay to share with a close coworker might not be appropriate for a company-wide meeting.
That makes sense. It's like you said before, reading the room and knowing how much to share.
Okay, now let's talk about something else that's important: respecting different work styles.
Yeah, some people work best in a busy environment with music and talking, while others need peace and quiet to focus.
Exactly. The article said it's important to be aware of those differences and think about what your colleagues prefer.
So if you know someone needs quiet time to concentrate, maybe you don't have a loud brainstorming session right next to them.
Right. And try to be mindful of the noise level in general, especially in open offices. We talked before about active listening, but the article also mentioned another thing that's really important for showing your engaged eye contact.
Oh yeah, eye contact. It's a big one.
It's a really powerful way to connect with people and show that you're sincere.
But I know some people can be uncomfortable with eye contact, especially in certain cultures.
That's true. The article said that different cultures have different ideas about eye contact, but in most business settings, it's good to try to make eye contact as much as feels appropriate.
So it's about finding that balance between being engaging and respecting cultural differences.
Right. Okay, we can't talk about business etiquette these days without talking about cell phones.
Ugh, yes. This is a big one for me. I've been in so many meetings where people are on their phones the whole time. It's so distracting.
Yeah, the article was pretty clear about this one. Put your phone away during meetings and important conversations.
It shows that you respect the people you're with and that you're paying attention to what's being said.
And if you really need to take a call or answer a message, just excuse yourself from the meeting or conversation.
That makes sense. It's about putting the people you're with first and giving them your full attention.
Okay, let's wrap up with one last unbreakable rule: complaining in a constructive way.
I know complaining can be negative, but is there a way to do it that's actually helpful?
The article said to focus on solutions instead of just venting about problems.
So instead of saying, this project is a nightmare, I could say something like, I'm having some trouble with this part of the project. I've tried this and that, and I'd love to get your ideas on how to solve it.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and finding ways to make things better instead of just dwelling on the negative.
This has been such an interesting conversation. I've learned so much about business etiquette and how these little things can make a big difference in my career.
And remember, it's not about memorizing a bunch of rules. It's about being aware of how your actions affect other people and treating everyone with respect.
So to all our listeners out there, take these tips and use them in your own work life. And remember, even small acts of courtesy and professionalism can make a big difference and help you build a more successful and fulfilling career. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.